Have you ever noticed how the harder you chase something, the further it seems to run? We grip tightly to plans, force outcomes, and exhaust ourselves trying to control every detail, believing that's how life is mastered. And yet, strangely, it's often the moment we loosen our grip that everything begins to align. This isn't about giving up. It's about giving in to the quiet intelligence of life, to the deeper rhythm we're often too busy to hear. In this episode, we'll explore a paradox. What if what you've been striving for is already moving toward you? If only you'd stop standing in the way. Take a breath, set down the pressure, and stay with me. This might change the way you move through everything. Lesson 1: The moment of surrender. There comes a time in every life when effort meets a wall, when your plans don't unfold, your relationships don't bloom, and no matter how hard you push, the universe remains unmoved. It's in these moments we double down, clinging tighter, controlling more, believing that our will alone can bend life to our favor. But what if that grip, that very resistance, is the problem? The Stoics knew true strength lies not in relentless force, but in the wisdom to know when to yield. Surrender isn't the same as giving up. It's not defeat. It is a conscious release, a return to flow. It's the art of letting go, not of our purpose, but of our obsession with how and when that purpose must unfold. Imagine your hand clenched into a fist. It's powerful, yes, but it can't receive, it can't hold. Now picture that hand open, calm, welcoming, ready. That is the difference between control and surrender. Consider Eleanor, an architect who spent years striving to build her reputation. She networked tirelessly, crafted perfect pitches, followed every rule. Yet the doors stayed shut. Until one day, drained and disillusioned, she simply stopped, returned to designing not to impress, but to express. In that silence, something shifted. A client found her through an old sketch. No push, no strategy, just resonance. Opportunity flowed in the space where pressure had once lived. This is the paradox. The moment we stop chasing, what we seek often finds us. Not because we gave up, but because we aligned with the rhythm of things. The Stoics called this amor fati, love of fate. Not passive resignation, but active cooperation with the current of life. Surrender doesn't mean you stop acting. It means your actions are born from clarity, not desperation. It's the difference between movement and frantic motion. Like the river that carves stone not by force, but by patience and persistence. So ask yourself, what are you holding too tightly? What dream are you suffocating with control? Perhaps it's time to ease your grip. Not to abandon the dream, but to let it breathe. Let surrender be your strength. Let trust replace tension. And watch quietly as life begins to move. Lesson 2: Resistance as a signal. Sometimes what holds us back isn't the outside world. It's something far more intimate. Not the lack of time, talent, or opportunity, but an invisible current we rarely notice until we're caught in its undertow. Resistance. Resistance doesn't shout. It whispers. It shows up the moment you edge toward something meaningful. It tells you to wait, to stay comfortable, to keep your dreams small, so nothing important is ever at risk. And because it wears 100 masks, fatigue, distraction, overthinking, even fake productivity, we rarely see it for what it is. But here's the truth. Resistance is not an enemy. It's a signpost, a subtle signal that you are approaching something real. No resistance ever shows up unless something powerful is trying to be born through you. It's not failure. It's the heat of transformation pressing against the edge of your old self. Think of Daniel, a musician who dreamed of recording an album. He had everything he needed: skill, ideas, space. But every time he sat down to compose, fear disguised as doubt took the wheel. He told himself he needed more time, more practice, more inspiration. But beneath it all was resistance, rooted in the fear that maybe he wasn't enough. That maybe if he gave it his all and still failed, the disappointment would be unbearable. It was only when Daniel stopped fighting that fear and started listening to it that things changed. He didn't banish resistance. He invited it to the table. He asked, "What are you trying to protect me from?" And in that question, he found the courage to move anyway. This is surrender, not weakness, not passivity, but strength in its quietest form. The strength to feel fear and still take one step. The strength to soften the dream into something you can hold. Not an album, just one melody. Not a masterpiece, just one brushstroke. The Stoics would call this progress through presence. Don't let resistance convince you you're broken. Let it remind you you're on sacred ground. Every artist, every philosopher, every soul who dared to grow has stood where you now stand. So when resistance comes, don't retreat. Listen, learn, then take one small, honest step. That step, gentle, aware, and free of force, is the gateway to everything you've been longing to create. Lesson 3: Trusting life's rhythm. After resistance comes a kind of silence, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, uncertain kind. The kind that leaves you staring at the ceiling at night, asking yourself, is this worth it? Am I lost? Should I press on or walk away? And in that fog, the mind, wired for control, tightens its grip. It demands answers, blueprints, guarantees. But life was never meant to be lived like a contract. It moves like a river, unpredictable, flowing according to a rhythm far wiser than any plan we could design. The Stoics believed in fate, not as passive surrender, but as deep alignment with the logos, the rational order of the universe. They knew that not everything could or should be forced. What matters is how we respond to the current, not how hard we try to dam it. Think of Lila, a woman who chased purpose like a finish line. She planned meticulously, followed the advice of mentors, filled notebooks with goals, but none of it brought her peace. One day, she paused, not out of failure, but fatigue. And in that stillness, she began listening, not to noise outside, but to the quiet pulls of her own soul. She followed what felt true, not flashy, one quiet decision at a time. A year later, she found herself in work that lit her up, not because she hunted it down, but because she let it unfold. That's the essence of trust, not passivity, but presence. You still show up, still take action, but you act like a partner in the dance, not someone dragging the rhythm along. You let go of timelines, of comparison, of the illusion that progress must look a certain way. Trust doesn't ask you to do nothing. It asks you to move without panic. It reminds you that a closed door may be a redirection, not a punishment, that the detour may be the preparation, and that what's meant for you is already unfolding, not in your schedule, but in its own perfect tempo. So ask yourself, where are you gripping too tightly? Where have you mistaken control for courage? Maybe the next step is not to push harder, but to soften, to listen, and to walk in step with something greater than your fear. Because that, quietly, is where real power begins. Lesson 4. Allowing overforcing. We're taught to believe that if we just push harder, try more, control tighter, life will eventually surrender to our will. But Stoic wisdom invites a different question. What if the answer is not more force, but more space? What if the breakthrough doesn't come from striving, but from allowing? There's a profound difference between action born from fear and action that flows from inner alignment. Fear-driven effort is frantic. It grasps, controls, rushes toward outcomes, measuring worth by what we achieve and when we achieve it. But aligned action feels different. It's deliberate, present, and rooted in clarity, not panic. It doesn't chase meaning, it responds to it. Allowing isn't passivity. It's not avoidance or giving up. It's the quiet discipline of knowing when to step back so life has room to breathe. Some questions aren't meant to be solved right now. Some paths unfold only when we stop gripping the map so tightly, and some answers only whisper themselves into our awareness when the inner noise finally goes still. But that's difficult in a culture that celebrates hustle and glorifies control. We're praised for making things happen, so allowing can feel like weakness. Yet, paradoxically, it takes far more strength to trust than to force. It takes wisdom to pause, to hold space without rushing to fix, to choose presence over pressure. Think of how nature works. A tree doesn't force its growth. It simply expands, day by day, in quiet harmony with the elements. If we tried to pull the leaves out of their buds, we'd only cause damage. But when we allow the right conditions, light, stillness, patience, growth becomes inevitable. The same truth applies to our lives. Your goals, your healing, your relationships, they don't need more effort. They need the right space. So maybe the real question isn't, what more can I do? Maybe it's, what am I willing to release? Can you release your need for certainty? Can you trust that your clarity comes not from controlling the future, but from being grounded in the present? Because in that gentle allowing, something powerful unfolds. You stop moving against life and start moving with it. You stop gripping and begin receiving. And what you've been seeking, it arrives, not because you forced it, but because you made space for it to come. Lesson 5. Releasing expectations. Expectations are invisible weights. We carry them quietly, about who we should be, how far we should have come, and what our life should look like by now. They're rarely based on truth. More often they're built on fear, on comparison, on the illusion of control. We don't just want things to happen, we want them to unfold our way, on our timeline, with our conditions. And when they don't, we feel let down, not by life, but by the script we wrote in silence and assumed life had agreed to follow. The Stoics would call this the root of unnecessary suffering. As Epictetus taught, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And expectations are judgments, rigid, unexamined, often inherited. They tighten our focus so narrowly that we miss the quiet beauty arriving just outside our field of vision. Desire isn't the enemy. Hope isn't weakness. But when desire calcifies into demand, when hope becomes entitlement, we suffer. The joy of becoming gets lost in the pressure to arrive. And suddenly, even success feels hollow, because it didn't come exactly as we imagined. Think of Aidan, a man who spent years chasing milestones, status, recognition, approval. He reached many of them, but instead of fulfillment, he felt numb. It wasn't that he had aimed too high, it was that he had bound his peace to an outcome. When he finally let go of what it was supposed to look like, something shifted. He still worked hard. He still dreamed big, but now he held the vision loosely, like an open palm rather than a clenched fist. That's the practice of surrender. Not indifference, but devotion without attachment. Not giving up, but growing wiser. You still plan, you still show up, but your worth is no longer on trial. You stop asking when will it happen, and start asking how can I be fully here while it unfolds. Let go of the timelines, release the silent contracts. Life was never obligated to follow your script, but it's always offering something richer if you're open to it. And when you finally allow reality to replace expectation, you create space, not just for peace, but for the unexpected beauty you never saw coming. That's where real freedom begins, not in controlling outcomes, but in meeting life with presence, not pressure. Lesson 6. The power of stillness. Most of us carry tension without knowing it, in our breath, our shoulders, even in the way we rush through moments that ask for nothing but presence. We live in a world wired for urgency, and somewhere along the way, stillness became unfamiliar. But stillness is not inactivity. It's not the absence of thought. It's the quiet presence beneath the noise, the place where surrender begins to take root. You don't need to retreat to the mountains or spend hours in silence to access this space. You just need 5 honest minutes. Sit, breathe, notice, not to escape, not to fix, but to witness. Let the breath move naturally. Let thoughts rise and fall without chasing them. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Stillness doesn't remove the chaos around you. It reminds you that you are not the chaos. It gives you space to respond, not react, to observe your thoughts without becoming them. Over time, you'll notice something subtle but profound. The urgency softens, the mind quiets, and life feels a little less like something to conquer and more like something you're in partnership with. Meditation is one gateway to this inner quiet, not as a performance, but as a practice, a gentle returning. It unwinds the nervous system. It loosens the need for control. It creates room for clarity, for peace, for truth to rise not from pressure, but from presence. The world will keep spinning. Your responsibilities won't vanish, but within all of it, there can be an anchor, a breath, a pause, a reminder that you are not what happens to you. You are how you meet it. So ask yourself, can you give yourself 5 minutes today, not to change, not to solve, but simply to be? In that act alone, surrender stops being an idea and becomes a way of living. And in that living, life stops feeling like a battle and begins to feel like a conversation, not loud, not rushed, just real, one quiet breath at a time. Lesson 7. Surrender as true strength. We often confuse control with strength. The more we manage, the more we micromanage, the more we believe we're strong. We create routines, build plans, hold expectations like lifelines, gripping tightly to the idea that if we just control everything, we'll be safe. But control, for many of us, isn't born from power. It's born from fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of loss, fear of not being enough if we let go. And yet, the tighter we grip, the more life resists. The more we push, the more exhausted we become. Control may offer the illusion of safety, but rarely the reality of peace. What it often delivers is anxiety, tension, and the quiet panic of trying to hold together something that was never ours to control in the first place. When things fall apart, we don't fail. We simply meet the truth. We were never in control to begin with. Surrender challenges this belief. It invites us to redefine strength, not as force, but as flexibility, not as domination, but as discernment. True strength isn't loud or rigid. It's quiet, rooted, and responsive. It listens before it acts. It trusts in timing. It understands that life is not a machine to be managed, but a rhythm to be joined. To surrender isn't to abandon responsibility. It's to shift our energy from force to flow. It's the shift from "I must make this happen" to "I will meet whatever happens with clarity and presence." That shift changes everything. How we deal with stress, how we measure our worth, how we recover from setbacks. We stop defining ourselves by outcomes. We start remembering who we are beneath the striving, the one who can choose again, respond wisely, and let go of the pressure to be perfect. This is where strength lives, not in the grip, but in the release. Not in controlling every detail, but in trusting that we'll be okay, even when plans change. And strangely, life often begins to move the moment we stop forcing it. Opportunities appear, connections deepen, clarity returns. Not because we pushed harder, but because we stopped blocking what was already trying to reach us. This shift isn't just personal. It plays out most clearly in our relationships. With those we love most, we often try to mold, manage, or protect them into what feels safe. We expect them to mirror our needs, love us our way, respond like we would. And when they don't, we try to correct, convince, even control, not out of malice but out of fear. But love isn't control. Love is presence. It's allowing the other to be who they are, even when it challenges us. Surrender in relationships isn't passive, it's powerful. It means holding space, not tightening the reins. It means letting go of the script we wrote for others and meeting them with openness, not expectation. It means expressing our truth without needing to rewrite theirs. Surrender doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we care enough to let things be real. Real love thrives not in pressure, but in presence, in honesty, in the willingness to show up without armor. Because when we stop trying to possess each other, we begin to understand each other. And in that understanding, we find connection, deep, alive, and lasting. So ask yourself, where in your life are you gripping too tightly? Where is the need for control costing you peace, connection, or freedom? What might happen, not if you gave up, but if you softened your grip? The answer may not come all at once, but the shift begins the moment you stop fighting and start listening. Lesson 8. The freedom of presence. We spend much of our lives outside the present, chasing the next goal, reliving old regrets, calculating what could go wrong. And in doing so, we miss the only place where life truly happens, here, now. The present isn't always comfortable, but it's always real. And surrendering to it, fully, is where freedom begins. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not because the future is unimportant, but because the present is the only place we have the power to act, to choose, to be. Yet we resist it constantly. We escape through overthinking, compulsive planning, scrolling endlessly, replaying what we should have said, or fearing what tomorrow might bring. But the next moment is just another now. If we can't inhabit this one, we'll miss all the rest too. Surrendering to presence doesn't mean we abandon our dreams. It means we stop arguing with reality. It's the act of meeting life as it is, not as we imagined it should be. When we do, something quiet and profound happens. The mind slows down, the body softens, and the heart remembers how to listen. Peace isn't found in perfect conditions. It's found in honest contact with the moment. Even when the present is uncomfortable, uncertain, or painful, there is still power in being with it rather than resisting it. Because underneath the noise, there's a steady presence that nothing outside you can touch. You don't need a perfect day to return to presence. You just need a breath, a moment of noticing, of anchoring. When you're here, truly here, you stop reacting and start responding. You stop needing life to prove anything and begin to participate in it with open eyes. So pause. Ask yourself gently, not where are you physically, but where are you mentally? Are you lost in a future you can't predict, or stuck in a past you can't rewrite? Come back. Come back to this breath, this feeling, this exact moment. Let it be enough. Because surrender isn't about giving up. It's about showing up, fully, courageously, and with the quiet confidence that life happens now. And when you live from now, you live free. Lesson 9. Surrender as alignment. So much of what we long for, peace, clarity, connection, meaning, is already within reach. Not hidden, not out of bounds, but simply missed, because we're rushing, because we're gripping, because we're trying to bend life into a shape it was never meant to hold. And somewhere in that strain, we forget. Surrender isn't defeat, it's deep attunement. To surrender is to return, to presence, to truth. It's the quiet choice to meet life not where we wish it was, but where it actually is. It's recognizing that control doesn't lead to freedom. Presence does. That forcing might deliver temporary wins, but only surrender creates lasting alignment. The kind that doesn't just change our results, but transforms who we are within them. Maybe the question isn't, what do I need to make happen? Maybe the deeper question is, what am I finally ready to release? What belief has outlived its purpose? What expectation is quietly draining your joy? What outcome are you gripping so tightly that it's keeping peace at a distance? Sometimes the greatest wisdom is not in holding on, but in softening, slowing, allowing life to come to you, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've started trusting. This is not a theory to admire from afar. It's a lived practice, a way of showing up rooted in presence, honesty, and deep courage. Because yes, it takes courage to stop pushing, it takes strength to be still, and it takes a rare kind of trust to believe this simple truth. What is truly meant for you will never need to be forced. If this journey resonates with you, hit subscribe and walk it with us.